This is big breaking emergency news. We are seeing multiple emergency situations happen around the country right now. An emergency has been declared for this situation, and authorities are warning that toxic chemicals are now being released. It's potentially getting into the waterways, and it's potentially affecting major U.S. cities and their water, like Detroit and Cleveland, right? And even all the way to Buffalo, their waterways and their water sources could be affected by this chemical release. So let's get into the details here really quick. Please hit that like, hit that subscribe. I'm posting multiple videos a day, keeping you guys updated on this urgent news, and it helps getting these warnings out. All right. You can see here, this is what's going on. This is the situation. This is happening in Canada, right on the U.S. border, and affecting Detroit, Cleveland, potentially Buffalo as well. All these major U.S. cities, their waterways are being poisoned with toxic chemicals, and authorities have declared an emergency. We also have a major emergency as well in another part of the country that's shutting down the supply chain and shutting down goods that are going into a major U.S. city. We'll get to that in just a second. But you can see here, this is what's currently happening. It says, Canadian First Nation declares emergency after INEOS chemical release in Ontario. All right, so you can see here, this is the factory that has released a massive amount of chemicals, and this has actually been going on for a while now. And the authorities just declared an emergency because they realize that the waterways and areas are being infected. And you can see it's always right by major rivers and waterways. This is the St. Clair River that runs into St. Clair Lake, or Lake St. Clair, sorry about that, which also runs into Lake Erie. So all of these potential waterways are being affected right now by this major spillage, and they're saying that this was a major leak of benzene. Okay, you can see here, a unit of a privately owned INEOS group was issued a compliance order by the Provincial Environment Ministry on April 18th to investigate the cause of the leak at its Ontario factory, which began earlier in April. It says the state of emergency will stay in place unless the discharge of benzene drops to acceptable levels, the First Nation said late on Thursday. All right, so this is affecting people right now. It's been going on the past month, and we were just warned of this. And now potentially people in Detroit are having their water affected. All right, they use the lake and they use rivers for their water draws and their water systems, and we are seeing massive amounts of benzene being dumped into this waterway. And you can see here, benzene, it says, according to the CDC, benzene is a known human carcinogen that can cause cancer in the blood-forming organs, including leukemia. Benzene is a component of crude oil and other substances, and is also found in glues, adhesives, paints, and cleaning products. 90% of benzene exposure comes from smokers smoking. All right, so directly linked to higher risk of cancer. Admittedly, multiple different sources, and they're saying that this is now in the waterways in these areas. All right, you can also see here, it says benzene is a known carcinogen to human that can cause a variety of health issues. It can cause cells to malfunction, such as by preventing bone marrow from producing enough red blood cells, which can lead to anemia. Benzene can also damage the immune system by changing antibody levels and causing the loss of white blood cells, and other effects include central nervous system, depression, arrhythmias, skin, eye, and respiratory tract irritation, nerve damage, all these different things. People are actually reporting in the area that they are having things like headaches, scratchy eyes, and breathing trouble as well. You can see here, they told Reuters at least 10 people had visited the hospital in the past 2 weeks with these symptoms. And they're saying there's at least 1,000 First Nation residents that live here right around this factory. All right, this is also right outside of Sarnia, Ontario. Okay, so this is affecting thousands and thousands of people right now directly, and it's also potentially affecting the waterways of major cities like Detroit, and even Lake Erie could be contaminated right now, being flooded with high levels of benzene. This could also be affecting fish, wildlife, and things like that. We are also seeing a major shutdown of a critical train system that goes into Portland, Oregon. You can see here a train derailment shuts down a historic bridge that carries cars and trains into Portland. Right, so one of the main bridges going into Portland right now has been shut down, and all traffic has been stopped due to this derailment that is happening outside of Portland, going into Portland, right? And this comes on the heels of what just happened I was reporting on earlier, right? There were multiple different attacks. There's all these different attacks going on, attacks on our power grid, blackouts going on, all this stuff I was reporting on earlier. And there was also a massive explosion in New Mexico of these rail cars just a few days ago as well. And now we're seeing another derailment that is shutting down the bridge going into Portland, Oregon, right? And this is a Union Pacific steel bridge. So all these things keep happening mysteriously. It's just a coincidence. Don't worry. And nobody's attacking U.S. critical infrastructure. All right? That's obviously sarcasm, because these things are happening so much that it cannot be a coincidence. You cannot convince me that this is a coincidence. All these derailments, there's been a ton of them. There's been people jamming stuff into the rails, trying to make them derail. All right, all this stuff's going on, and people are being affected by it. Supply chains are being shut down, and now people are being exposed to these toxic chemicals as well. All right, so please hit it up for me down there, guys. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. It helps to get these warnings out so people know what's happening. All right, because some people are just, their eyes are freaking burning and they're coughing and they're like, what the heck's going on? And it's because benzene is being released into the environment and dumping out, right? And it's evaporating, burning people's eyes, things like this too. This is insane, right? And benzene's also one of these chemicals that keeps showing up in all of these products, like all these random products that they keep testing, right? Some of it could be, too much, right? Testing's off, something along those lines, but it's one of the main chemicals that keeps coming back in all these random products, and it doesn't seem like a coincidence, right? This stuff's toxic. It's linked to leukemia, admittedly, by the CDC, right? So now potentially, and why is it always the waterways? All these major accidents, when I saw this story, I was like, I bet this place is right on a river. I just guessed it right away. As soon as I saw the story pop up, I was like, I bet this factory's on a river, because it doesn't say that in the article or anything. I had to look exactly where it's at. All right, but it's right on the river there. Okay, right there. And probably the reason is because a lot of these factories and places, they use the river water in their manufacturing. And most of the time it's fine. It's not a big deal. They can drain water out of it. And it's a good resource to use. But we also have to think of the risk of building all these different things along the river and when they have emergencies like this. All right, so get yourself detoxed as well. All right, I'm not making any claims here, but this is what I use personally for detoxing. Things like cilantro, all right, cilantro extract, things like that are good for detoxing, and they can pull heavy metals out and toxic chemicals out of your body and your system, right? And one of the other main things is just sweating. Your body is like a giant sponge, and you can saturate the sponge with water, drink a lot of water, fresh water, clean water, not even water bottles. They're filled with microplastics and junk and estrogen mimickers, all this stuff. Bottled water is terrible for you, but tap water, a lot of it has fluoride. It's like, which one's worse? Right? It's one of these things you really need to have some type of filtration or clean water source, well water source, because you need to be drinking lots of water and then sweating, squeezing the water out and getting all the toxins out as well. It's one of the main ways that you sweat, that you get toxins out, is through sweating, right? And some toxins, I can't remember, there's this one toxin that's in brown rice, right? I can't remember what toxin it is. And it accumulates, and one of the only ways that you can get it out of your system is through sweating. And you have to sweat this stuff out, right? So I know it sounds simple, but it is. That's one of the best ways. Saunas, things like that, working out, getting outside in the sun, all right, absorbing the sun directly on your skin. These are some of the best ways to detox, because then you will produce more vitamin D, which is a natural antioxidant and immune booster. All these things, all right? Get outside, get your hands dirty, sweat, all right? That's the key to getting these toxins out. And also things like cilantro, high levels, and cilantro extracts as well can definitely help with getting these heavy metals and chemicals out of your body. That's what I use, at least, all right? I'm not making any claims here, but that's what I use personally to detox and get these things out. And just tons of water, stay super hydrated, and just be filtering your body out constantly with fresh water, right? So thank you guys. I appreciate you guys watching. If you're still here, make sure you are filtering your water if you're in these regions, and these chemicals can stay in the water and in the ground and in the water table. Even things like your well can be contaminated from crap like this because it seeps down. Sometimes it takes a few years to seep all the way down. This is what's happening in Ohio right now. East Palestine is that all these toxic VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and chemicals that were produced in East Palestine, they have been working their way and washing their way down to the water table. I made a video on this a few months ago, how experts are warning, scientists are warning that they're testing the water here, and they can see these chemicals are now showing up in well water and things like that. So even that isn't safe, right? The ground does filter out a lot of it, but the problem is it filters out bacteria, all these things, because the organisms are bigger. But the problem with these things, these are very small particles, even some of them nanoparticles, that accumulate easy and pass through even the smallest filtration. All right, so get yourself active. It's summertime. It's go time to get your homestead ready too. We could see more shutdowns of supply chains as well, just like we see in Portland, Oregon right now. Okay. And by the way, the Francis Scott Key Bridge and the Baltimore port is still mostly shut down. They haven't cleared the stuff, and it's causing major shortages throughout the country, fertilizer shortages. They actually declared a state of emergency in Montana because they can't get any fertilizer there for the crops, and they're saying it's going to cause $400 million. A quarter of all their crops are going to be wiped out this year because they can't get fertilizer, and they're saying it's from this Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse. All right, so we could see more shutdowns of supply chains. This is happening in Portland, Oregon. Hopefully they can get this back up and running soon. It doesn't look too critical, too bad. All right, but be prepared, be stocked up, be prepped, have your prepper pantry filled up, ready to go. And I hope you have big blessings for your life, your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.